Hello everyone, I am August Sandberg for 59 North and you are listening to the QUARTERDECK Sailing Podcast. We are back for a 3-week mini-season and will then pass the ball back to our sister podcast, On the Wind. Today, we're exactly 1 month away from the Annapolis Boat Show, and I am very excited as I will be going to the boat show for the first time ever. So if you want to meet me and Andy and Mia and more of the 59 North team, come and see us at the 59 North booth. Or you can come to one of our many events. We're doing so many cool things throughout the week. I can't wait. It's all listed on our website at 59-north.com/boat show. So you can go and check them all out there. We're doing a seamanship seminar with Brady and Blue from Cruisers Academy on Friday. We're doing a social crew party that same evening and that's going to be on Matt Rutherford's boat, Marie Tharp, which is quite the sight. On Saturday, Mia's hosting a women's happy hour event, and on Sunday, you can come sailing with us on the schooner Woodwind. Something that I'm also looking forward to a lot. Again, that's 59-north.com/boat show. Check it out. I would love to see you there. Also, please come and join us on the QUARTERDECK at quarterdeck.59-north.com, where Andy Schell and myself post articles and videos and host live streams and all sorts of fun educational sailing content. Thank you for listening. Please enjoy this episode. Have a wonderful day, and always remember to hold fast. Cool. Here we are. Good to see your face, Andy. How are you feeling this morning?
I am tired. We're going to save this for another podcast, but I am in full-on boat shopping mode, and my head is just spinning. I could not sleep last night. I'm going to look at 2 boats this afternoon. So we're going to record a podcast about that, but man, I'm delirious.
That sounds exciting and exhausting, but in a good way. So
it is.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to talking about that. That's gonna be great. I think. I am also a little tired. I just came back last night from a 5-day exercise with the army out in the woods. So it's been just sleeping under the stars and crawling around on patrols all night. So yeah.
Makes offshore sailing like downright comfortable by comparison, I guess.
Well, yeah, sometimes. At least it was dry. The weather was fantastic, which was great. But there are similarities and differences for sure. There's no ticks offshore. I spent like 45 minutes last night just picking ticks out of everywhere. So
that is horrible. Oh my God. The real question is though, did you see any Russians?
We didn't see any Russians. So
okay,
you can sleep well in that regard. So it was great. They wouldn't have dared show up near us. We were doing all sorts of really awesome military stuff. So I think we scared them off.
They wait until Christmas or summer break when all the military goes home on vacation.
That's right. Probably what they do.
Yeah.
It's very strategic. Yeah, no, so it's haven't seen the ocean at all now for 5 days, which is a little weird. So I'm looking forward to talking about sailing stuff with you. It's been very lacking here in the last week, so that'll be fun.
What are we talking about today? We're on a break from On the Wind, so we're back with the QUARTERDECK podcast. But what are we talking about?
That's right. We're talking about the Shetland Race that I just completed now a couple of months ago in June. That was a really fun race, a very challenging race, and we had all sorts of things that kind of just I thought it was a very interesting experience, and thought it'd be fun to talk about, and we haven't really talked about it, which is these podcasts are just such a cool opportunity for us just to like actually talk about these things. We're so busy that we don't really have the time to debrief all this stuff.
Yeah, the only thing.
Deserve.
The only thing I remember is like in real time as the race was happening, you and I were texting, and you're like, "Yep, it's going to be like horrendous 35 knots upwind to Shetland," and I was like, "That sounds terrible." Bye. And I didn't really hear anything beyond that. So, ironically, I think around the same. I forget if the Shetland race was before or after Gotland Rund, but like I think it was before because then. I was kind of teasing you for that, and then I had the same thing in Gotland Rund and actually had to quit the race. So, so you managed to get through it. So yeah. So, what are the big takeaways for you?
That's right. Well, it's there's many. First, for those who might not know, the Shetland Race is a race that goes from Bergen in Norway across the North Sea to Lerwick on Shetland. So it's 200 nautical miles, and then you stop there for a few days, celebrate prize giving for the first leg, and then you race back a couple of days afterwards. And I had a full crew on ISBJØRN ready to go. We also did it in 2023. That time it was 50 boats, I think, almost 50 boats signed up. And you can kind of tell from what the weather's been like the last time by looking at how many boats sign up. And 2023 was pretty rough. It was pretty gnarly. It was upwind both ways. And so this year, it was only 28 boats, I think, that had signed up. So, people, many who were sailed it last year was going to sit this one out. And then, sure enough, because it's such a random race because it's the North Sea can throw anything at you at that time, and so you never know if it's going to be stormy or it's beautiful. You'll have to pack, thick woolen clothing and foulies, and also t-shirts and shorts. You have no idea what's gonna happen, which is really cool and challenging. But
I mean, it's a neat concept of the race as well. Like it's like 2 legs, and you stop and hang out in a very cool place in the interim. So I really like that concept. And what's the history there? Isn't there something based around like the some World War II stuff going on there? Was there some inspiration for that, or is that just the route?
Yeah, no, that's definitely a big part of it. So the race kind of honors this the sailors and fishermen and this kind of traffic that happened between Shetland and Norway during the Second World War, as Norway was occupied by Nazi Germany at the time. So these sailors would just cross the ocean with weapons and agents and all sorts of stuff to saboteurs to help the Norwegian resistance and to throw all sorts of spanners into Hitler's machinery. So, and there's a really strong friendship kind of formed between Western Norway and Shetland during that time, and and that race really honors that. And it's an old race too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like 50 years, maybe, almost, something like that.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so that is a huge part of it. That the Shetlanders are really excited about it, and there's a lot of stuff happening around the race. On that side, there's 2 race committees. So there's an additional race committee over in the on the Shetland Islands who's kind of take care of us when we're over there, and it's really cool. So a fun race to be a part of. And it's also you have the you get the race course itself. You have the weather, which is always exciting, and there's so much traffic and oil rigs and all sorts of stuff going on out there as well. So it's a bit of a hurdle race sometimes to get through all the stuff that's going on. They have these massive ships doing seismic surveys. Those are the worst. Because they will, they tow these seismic arrays, which can be miles long, and their courses are so erratic. So they'll just go in like all weird, like zigzag motions, and and you're trying to, especially when you're racing and you're trying to squeeze, every degree out of your every tack. It's pretty tough.
I remember Mia, when she sailed Falcon from Bergen down to Amsterdam, said, like, I think they were downwind, and I mean, it's annoying in cruising mode. I can't imagine in racing mode, but she said the same thing. They were on the radio with one of those seismic ships, and they're like, please give us a 2-mile berth. And Mia's like, what the fuck? And they had to do like a couple jibes to get around this thing, and it's just like, it's so weird because like the North Sea is obviously a pretty big body of water, but you feel very hemmed in because at any given time you've got these ships, you've got oil rigs, you've got wind farms. I did the trip up from Amsterdam to Maastricht around the top of Denmark earlier this summer, and same thing. We had to sail like 40 miles west out of Amsterdam to get around these like enormous wind farms that you so it's like, man, you're really hemmed in there. It's that must add an interesting challenge to the racing aspect. What does the racing rules say about that? Like, is it all just coal regs you have to follow, or do they give instructions on how to deal with any of that?
It's just the call regs. They do give a little bit of during the skippers meeting. There is a whole segment on just how to deal with all that stuff, because it can be pretty confusing. Like some of the ships and installations you have to call on the radio and kind of ask. Many of them have, because it all depends. They all have different safety zones, I guess they call them, like how close you can get. And they're all different. And sometimes they're listed in their AIS information thing when you see them on the AIS. Sometimes they have these virtual AIS beacons kind of put on the map indicating where you can't go. But it's very confusing. And so they do talk about that at the skippers meeting. There was a few boats that actually who violated some of those rules actually on the return leg. I just heard them on the radio being scorned by some. I couldn't hear very well, but I'm not sure if they get penalized by the race committee. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they
must.
are.
Yeah,
totally.
So this reminds me of two stories that I've definitely told before, but worth telling again. One was coming across. Well, I'll tell. These are not in the right order, but the first story I'll tell. I was on a delivery. It was like a sail training trip with a couple that had a Hallberg 43. And they had never really sailed it offshore, and they wanted to do a trip out to Bermuda and back. So they hired me. This was like pre-59 North. I think this was 2014, I think. Maybe even 2015. It might have been right at the early days of 59 North. Anyway, so we sailed out to Bermuda from New York City, and then spent a few days in Bermuda, and then sailed back. And on the way back, it was like a halfway between Bermuda and New York, not yet in the Gulf Stream. Flat, calm nights. We're motoring. I was asleep in the settee down in the main salon. And I like heard some commotion outside, and I stick my head out, and all I see is like this wall of a ship going like right behind us, all lit up. I could see like the guys standing there looking down, and I was like, in my blurry sleep, middle of the night, I was like, what the hell? And so I came up, and it turns out that like the owner was on watch. Super cool guy. His name's Doug. He actually came on the podcast a long time ago to debrief this with me because I wrote about it, and a bunch of people were like, "Hey, why'd you throw the owner under the bus?" Like blah blah. And it's like I didn't actually. We debriefed it, and then Doug came on and we talked about it. But basically, he had misinterpreted a moving ship as if it was a stationary object. So we were heading northwest. There was this moving object coming from our right from right to left across the bow, but he misinterpreted it as a stationary platform. He thought it was an oil rig. And, if I'd have been awake or whatever, there's not any oil rigs between Bermuda and New York. There are some wind farms now off the coast of the U.S., but not that far offshore. But, in the middle of the night, your brain tells you one thing, and it didn't have AIS, so okay, that's what it is. So he kept altering course to port, and as this thing keeps moving, it basically, Doug was inadvertently keeping it on a collision course the whole time. And anyway, he had to do like a loop-de-loop to like at the last second just did a full 180 to avoid a collision. And that's what I saw as the ship going behind us. So fun postscript to this story. I wrote about this in Sail Magazine, I think, and somebody read my article who was actually on that ship. and
No way.
and sent me an email, and he's like, "Hey," and it was a Navy ship, and they were towing a decommissioned Navy submarine, so they weren't on AIS, obviously.
Oh crap! Holy shit!
And he described what had happened. He's like, "Yeah, we were towing a decommissioned Navy submarine. We weren't on AIS. That's what you guys saw out there." So like, what are the chances that a guy read my article and then replied? And he didn't say this in his reply, but my assumption was that because we were being erratic, they might be actually, I don't think we were actually in any danger of collision. I think they were deliberately checking us out to see what was going on because it was like a military thing.
Maybe.
So I actually think they came closer to us than they needed to because of that. That's just an assumption. But anyway, so that one of those kind of things. But the reason that reminded me of what you're talking about is I had a similar experience prior to this on Arcturus crossing the North Sea when it was just Mia and I. Same idea. It was late at night. We were motoring because there was no wind, and Arcturus had a wind vane, so it didn't have an autopilot. It was only so the autopilot only worked when there was wind. So I'm hand steering. We're taking turns, just the two of us, on and off. So I was really tired. Exact same scenario. I saw what I thought was an oil rig off to starboard, so I altered to port. And then it was like still in the same spot. So I kept altering to port. At the last second, I was like, Mia, you got to come up here. What the hell is happening? And it was one of those, those rigs are portable. So it was a ship towing a fucking oil rig, like repositioning it.
So in a way, you were right.
I was right, but same thing. I had to do a loop-de-loop at the last second because I was like, "What is?" My brain at night couldn't take this thing, which clearly was an oil rig, and make the leap that it was actually moving. And I didn't look at the compass course. I didn't realize that I kept moving, and scary stuff like that when you got stuff in the way and you're sleep deprived. And now like you said, to bring this back to racing, you add the fact that you're racing on top of that, and it makes that even more confusing and difficult.
Yeah, because you're really trying to having to fall off for 40 minutes to let something kind of pass by. It's just not cool at all when you're racing. So it's
one more story to share. Also on ISBJÖRN, racing in the Carib 600. The last time we attempted it on ISBJÖRN, there was a non-racing boat. We were spinnaker sailing on port tack, so poles out to port from Barbuda down to Nevis, and it was honking. We were like, Paul Exner was on board. We were freaking ripping. It was cool. Middle of the night, there's a non-racing boat on starboard tack sailing north and crossing the entire fleet. So we're on port with a kite up. He's on starboard, and we couldn't safely pass in front of him because we would have, as we sailed deeper downwind, we would have either had to jibe or we would have lost some speed. And it was like we had, because he had right away because he's on starboard tack, even though he's not racing. So we had to keep heading up to get behind him. And the freaking spinnaker pole folded in half because we came too high on the wind, and the pole broke in the middle of the night. So another one of those stories where like trying to race, and this stupid non-racing boat is interfering with everything, and actually, contributed to us having to bail out of the race.
Yeah, it's complicated stuff. All of this, these annoying non-racers out there just in your way. I'll say if you're going across the North Sea now, I think you need AIS. Like I just think you need it. Like there's no, because all of these like safety zones and avoidance things and all that information, it's only on AIS. It's nowhere else. You're gonna sail right and get into trouble. I just don't know if you don't have AIS. How do you know? There's just no way to. So no,
you have to be, I guess, more proactive and get on the radio and talk to all these people. But that's which you sometimes have to do anyway.
Yeah, but then you'll have to be very like having to call all of these different and without AIS, without the names, and you see like 5 rigs around you, and you're gonna have to call the right one. And it's.
I got a question for you. So all this in mind. You're running ISBJÖRN without a mate. So when are you sleeping? Especially, you had pretty heavy weather going on that first leg. How did you manage that? How do you manage that I mean, I guess I have that question on any of your trips you do, but especially when racing, especially in that environment, especially in heavy weather. How did you handle that?
Yeah, I just stayed awake. So it's quite a lot, but no, pretty good at just grabbing little micro sleeps here and there, and sleeping in the cockpit a little bit, and stuff like that. And I was made sure I got as much sleep as possible before the race, and also at the very start where the conditions were a little better. But no, it's challenging for sure, absolutely. It's a lot of
What
things,
was the weather like, and
on.
what sail plan did you have up?
The weather was going to be bad. It was going to be out of the south for the first like 5 hours or so. Pretty good, like 15 knots out of the south. Pretty good. Maybe it was even 10. Started out as 10. So it was like a beam reach, close reach at the very start for a little bit, which was grand. It was a really fun and fast start. And
is the start offshore, or do you have to navigate through the islands to get offshore?
The start is offshore.
Okay.
So you sail, you kind of just motor out to the ocean, and then there's a start line outside of the archipelago. So
yep.
So we so this was going to be quite well at the beginning there, and then we were going to get hit by these westerlies, just like right in the teeth, out of the west for all of the first night, and then most of the next day, and then it was going to turn southerly again and become like another reach at the very end. Depending on how long we spent out there, of course. But this, like and it was like at the top there was going to be like 35 knots sustained out of the west for a good while. And
35, did you say?
Yeah.
Fucking hell. It's not often the wind blows that hard, sustained, and if it does, you're never going to choose to go into it. Yeah.
No, it's it's exactly, that's the thing. And that was like my first kind of takeaway from this race. Is just like how different it is racing and cruising. And I did my usual thing before departure. We sit the crew down and we get the chart out and we get all the weather models and the forecasts and all that, and look at that. And usually what we do is that we gather all information and we look at it and we try to identify like the best weather window, like when will be the best time to sail. And so we did that, and we found, okay, this is definitely the worst time to sail, and that's when we're going. So it's like no sane cruiser would ever leave at the time when we did, because it was just the absolute worst timing. And
we had literally the exact same scenario in Gotland Run. Exactly same thing. It was like just for 24 hours, it was going to be horrendous, and that was when the start was. It's like, okay, super. And the race committees are like, have fun. That's what we're here for.
Tough luck. Yeah, it's funny how the cruisers always say, "I'll never sail on a schedule. You got to be flexible and with weather and stuff." And then racers, they go like, "Okay, on this date, at this time a day, 6 months from now, that's when I'm gonna sail." and you just gotta to deal with it, I guess. Which is, of course, you have to manage a lot of weather that you usually wouldn't have to deal with. But that is kind of cool, because you get to challenge yourself in some conditions that you normally wouldn't even consider going out in. So it's, in a way, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, once in a while you should do that. So you never answered my question. What sails did you have up when the wind shifted?
Oh yeah, we started out with we had the big Genoa out and the full mainsail. We just had to make as much as we could out of those reaching conditions at the start. And then it was going to switch on go around pretty quick into the very heavy westerlies. So we just left the big Genoa up, furled it up, and put the staysail up. And so we went directly from the big Genoa to the staysail, triple reef main, and then just gradually, we kept that up for the first night and then into the next morning, and then we gradually shook some reefs out of the main, and then when the southerlies came back in a more moderate fashion, we unfurled Genoa first a little bit, and then all the way, and then we flew that all the way home to Shetland.
I'm always surprised when the wind is like so strong like that, and you get used to it, and the boat's, once you got the sails right, the boat's kind of doing its thing, and then when the wind eases off from like 35 to 25, it feels like a nice summer day, and it's still blowing 25 knots. It's like, and then when it goes down to 15, it's like, what the hell? Like, it's not windy at all. It's just how your calibration gets out of whack when it really blows hard and you're just doing it.
Yeah, totally. It's very fascinating. So so that was the setup that we used. I considered, because there was a window there when the smaller furling Genoa would have been a better sail to keep. I quickly decided that we're just not going to deal with swapping them out, because it's going to be. We did that last year on the Shetland Race, and it just wasn't worth it, because the sea stayed so messy, and having to bring people up on the foredeck and mess with that sail, it takes so long out offshore, and you're just bouncing around these old seas. We took a giant wave down the forward hatch last time, and it's just
oh no,
just horrible. So. And you don't have the engine to help you out, so you're just like bobbing around out there, and so I decided that we're gonna lose time by spending too much dealing with that, so we just kept the big Genoa out. Used the stay sail. That sail is fantastic. It is such a great little sail, and you can sheet it home so close to the center line, because it goes on the inside of the shrouds, and that's really good. That was another kind of takeaway that I had, that I've been out in heavy weather like that many times. It's not, the wind wasn't really that unusual for me, but like having to sail right into it as fast as you can, that is something that I haven't been doing a whole lot in my career. Like if it's blowing that strong, I'm usually you crack off a little bit, you put a little more reefs in than you actually have to, and you sail conservatively, and sure, it might take you 6, 10, an extra day to get to where you need to go, depending on the size of the system and how long it's going to blow. But usually that's fine. It doesn't matter. Like, you prioritize the endurance and the comfort of the crew ahead of just trying to get to where you need to go a couple hours sooner. But when you're racing, it's just you just gotta push the boat straight into that weather as much as you can, and it's that's tough. That's hard. But I was very impressed with that stay sail, how well it did, and how high we could point.
I was going to ask you what kind of boat speeds were you getting with that setup, because that's not a lot of sail, 3 reefs and a little staysail.
It was varying a lot. We were also kind of tacking at the very end of this. They were going quite far south, and because we did go south intentionally, because we wanted to, as we knew these southerlies were going to fill in later in the race, we wanted to be in a good position to take advantage of those. But when you get further south, you get into these the strong westerlies in the North Sea. The Shetland Islands create as a nice little kind of breakwater for the North Sea, so you kind of want to stay in a cone behind Shetland. We went a little further south there and kind of tacked up and back in sort of the boundary between the big swells and the bigger swells, I guess. But I think we managed maybe like 4.5 possibly into some of that. Depending, it was very erratic, both the conditions and also like helming the boat in those conditions are very difficult, very, very tough. And so that was probably what was hindering us the most, was just how tough the helming was. And
was anybody seasick?
Yeah. Almost everybody.
I was gonna say the better question might be: was anybody not seasick?
Yeah, yeah. No, it was me and one other crew were not sick. So that was good. We did all the foredeck work and put with the staysail and all that. If I had been the only one who was not sick, that would have been very tough. But but everybody was really good. Everybody took their turn at the helm, and it was everybody did great. It was a very very motivated, very fun, excited crew. Although yes, they were a little sick. We were, and we wanted to push the boat. We had kind of two motivations there. One was, of course, we wanted to place well in the race and do a good job and maybe even try and win something. But we also had along on our boat, we had a gentleman, Hutch. Shout out to Hutch. He came on board and he told me that he had been going for a run every single day, every day. He hadn't missed a single day for 17 years.
Wow.
And he said he very much wanted, to not break his streak, but he told me he was prepared for the possibility that he might lose his streak on this trip. But of course, we very much wanted him to keep that going. So
did he run? Did he run on the day of the start?
Day of the start, he woke up super early and he went for a run before we headed out to the start line.
Wow!
And so if we would have managed to, get in by the evening of the second day, he could have gone for another run on Shetland and kept his streak. So we were very motivated by that, trying to get Hutch to what I can only imagine would be a very not a very impressive run on Shetland as we came in, but sadly he did lose his streak as we made the slowest crossing in the North Sea I've ever done. And,
really?
We were not in, but he was fine with it. But it's it was.
Now, what do we fast forward 3 months later? Now he's like fat, out of shape, hasn't gotten off the couch. We've ruined his life. I can't believe I missed my streak for that.
Yeah, I don't think he went running any of the days when we were on Shetland. So but it's it's so impressive. Like he I've never been that consistent with anything in my life.
No,
it's
same.
very, very cool. But at the same time, he was feeling that it was starting to maybe control him a little bit, and that like if for instance he would have decided not to come and do this race because he wanted to keep his running streak, then it would have cost him as well. So.
What was the carnage in the rest of the fleet? Like, how you said 28 boats took the start. I don't imagine that 28 boats made it to Shetland.
No, you're right. Actually, on the day before the race, when the weather forecasts kind of started to solidify a little bit, I think another 5 boats just didn't start at all.
Okay.
So I might be. The 28 might be after or before those boats had decided not to start. I can't quite remember the details, but yeah, there was definitely many boats that didn't want to start because of the weather. And then as the fleet headed into the big westerlies, I think 7 boats turned back.
Wow!
It was so one boat lost their masts, dismasted, One of them had some issues with their forestay. Another boat broke their steering cable, and went back just under autopilot.
Okay.
And another boat had, I don't know the full story, but I think they might have, like they had a leak in the bow. It sounds like maybe the anchor got loose or something, and they took a lot of water through the bow, and then which started flooding the boat, and that caused a short circuit, which then caused a fire.
Holy shit!
Pretty bad there for a bit. So of course we're listening to all of this on the radio, right? As we go out there, and it was pretty bad. And what was the rest?
So remind me to talk. Another topic for a quarterdeck podcast is anchors on the bow at sea, because we're in the process of changing out Falcon's anchor roller and anchor setup because we can't keep the anchor we have now. There's no way to properly lash it. It just bangs all over the place. The tip of the anchor took a gouge out of the front of the boat when it got loose before. So I think we have a solution. Shout out to Mantis Marine, came to the rescue, but we'll save that for another episode.
Oh, nice. Those are we won't get into it, but those are the modular ones, right?
Well, yeah, but that's not actually the solution. They acknowledge this problem and actually make a special bow roller designed to keep the anchor secure at sea, which a lot of these sort of new style anchors have so much surface area that they don't do well on the bow when they're plowing into a head sea, and the old school anchor rollers don't lock into place like a plow or CQR or like that type of anchor does. So, so I don't. It's Adam's supposed to receive it this week in England, and when the rig comes out of the boat, look at installing it. So it's still an unanswered question, but the theory looks pretty good.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. It is, a giant spiked wrecking ball that you have up there, so it's
and on Falcon's case it weighs 125 pounds.
Jesus. Yeah, imagine that when you going up into a steep sea, like how much momentum that carries. And that is there's a reel there's a reel on Instagram, on 59 North Instagram, you can look at from like 2 weeks ago when we sailed Falcon, which is going to be the topic of another episode. But you can see this. John, one of the crew members on board, John, had a 360 camera, and he was out on the bow, and the boat just freaking submarines right into a freaking 6-foot steep Baltic or West Coast wave. And you can see very clearly, he actually posted a photo of how that anchor interacts with the ocean. And if you watch the reel and focus on the anchor, you can see how much flat surface area there is and how that slams into the ocean going down and then acts like a scoop coming back up again. I mean, the forces on that must be unbelievable. Right, of course, yeah. Jeez.
And you can see this video makes a perfect illustration of what we're talking about.
Yeah. I'll go and check that out. That is even if you're interested in these kind of technical details or not, I would recommend everybody to check out that reel. It is awesome.
It's a fun reel.
Yeah. That sounds very interesting. I'm not sure that is what happened to this boat or not, but it did sound like they had some kind of damage up there, and that was causing the ingress of water. But yeah, so quite a few boats turned back. That's a really good thing about fighting your way to windward, is that you always have, like, you could just turn 180 degrees and go downwind, and everything is just nice.
That's what I did. That's what I did in Gotland Run. It was the best 20-mile sail back to the harbor. We had the pole out with a jib. We were surfing at 11 knots. It was perfect.
Fantastic. That's great. So those are the ones that turned back, and then there was another one who can didn't finish the race because they didn't make the time limit, but they did manage to limp over across, which is very, very impressive. Ocean Girl, shout out to Ocean Girl, a little smaller Halbergasse. Cool. They did it. They fought their way there. They limped into Lerwick with a dismounted engine.
Holy shit!
The engine had just jumped off its mounts.
Oh my god!
And they tied up to us sometime during the night, and which turned out to be a good decision because we had all the tools they could imagine needing. So
shout out to Adam for supplying the toolbox, eh?
That's right. Yeah, they were very impressed. So that was
cool.
Very cool.
Wow.
And so that was impressive.
So what was the sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's I think like that was of course that dismounting of the engine wasn't only due to the big weather. Well, it was, but it was also the nuts for the mounts that was supposed to secure the engine had probably fallen off, way before that. It's not often boats see that kind of weather, but as long as you're only sailing in flat waters and not go too crazy, the engine will sit happily on its mounts, just unattached. So that was the thing that happened to this boat. That's how I imagine it, is that it had been unsecured for a long time, and then this was a proper shakedown, and then it bounced off the mounts.
So what was the atmosphere like amongst the other boats that made it across? I mean, that's got to be like a cool feeling that you truly earned that destination. Yeah,
it was. People were happy, just glad that it was over, I guess, it's just proud. It's a pretty tough leg to do, and I don't think as people were talking, I don't think anybody could remember a year that had been worse than this. So it was pretty bad. And I think there's been a couple of times where they have actually postponed the start a little bit because of weather that might have been stronger, and that was something that came up a lot at the pub after the race, was should they have postponed the start or not. But
sure,
which is
what do you think? Should they have?
I don't know, like it's for the sailors and the boats and everything. I mean, yes, they should have. It would have been better and safer for everybody involved. Also, it's kind of, I think it's fine. You should be able to sail in that kind of weather. It's just a different race, a different challenge. And I also appreciate the logistical nightmare it probably is to postpone a race start like that, especially when you have two locations and all the stuff that's going on in between. I think I think it's fine. And then I think it's as people need to, the fact that the race committee says go doesn't mean that the weather necessarily is safe for you to sail in. I think it needs to come down to every individual skipper needs to make a decision on their own, whether they want to go or not. And I think it is very much the nature of this race that sometimes the weather just is really rough, and I think everybody just knows that when they sign up.
So you were rewarded though on the way back. You had a very different experience on the way back. Yes. Talk about that.
That was glorious. We had just a complete opposite. Well, I guess maybe actually much of the weather wasn't that opposite, but we were just going in the opposite direction. But it was on the return leg there a couple of days later, we had westerlies again. The sun was out. It was fantastic downwind conditions all the way. It was pretty strong at the start. Maybe it was like 20 plus knots at the very beginning. So we went out around the little point there, and we were setting up our spinnaker, and we saw a couple of spinnakers around us just go way out of control, and with some really ugly broaches around us. So okay, we're gonna wait a little bit before we hoist this thing. So we winged it for a little bit at the start, and then as the wind died off a little bit, then we hoisted the spinnaker, and then we left that up the whole way back and just stayed right on the rum line with the symmetrical spinnaker. We could just go dead downwind, which was exactly where we needed to go. And it was really fast and really fun, and beautiful sunny weather, and it's a glorious sail. And we won our class as well. So,
weren't you the first boat over the line too in your class?
We were, yeah. That was, and we were the lowest rated boat in our class, and we were the first over the line.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
That's so satisfying, because then you can celebrate the moment you cross the line. You know that you won. You don't have to wait for the other boats and do all the math and all that stuff to figure out if you're won or not. So
yeah, you get it instantly.
That was very very satisfying, and it also means that we won with quite some margin, which is cool.
What so in comparison, how many hours did it take you to get across, and how many hours did it take you to get back? Because it's the exact same course in reverse, right? It's the same start and finish line, just opposite.
Yeah. Oh, good question. I did find the leaderboard here. Let me see. We were on elapsed time. ISBJØRN spent 1 day and 17 hours going westwards. So that's 24 plus 17 hours.
Going to Shetland.
Going to Shetland upwind.
How many miles is the course?
200 miles.
Okay.
And then let me load in leg 2 here.
This is great audio.
Oh, this is fantastic content. 1 day and 3 hours.
Wow, so you 14 hours. I mean, that's 15 hours quicker. Holy smokes.
Yeah. So that's quite a difference. So yeah,
that's awesome. That's very cool.
It's fairly obvious when you look at. I would be interested in seeing how the distance sailed. So we sailed 196 nautical miles on the return leg.
Okay.
So that is almost pretty
bang on.
If you were to grab your compasses and your ruler and you wanted to measure the distance on the chart, that's probably close to where you would get it.
Yeah.
And we sailed 230 miles on the way west. So,
there you go. That's your difference right there.
Yeah. So we were that was very very good. We were super happy coming back there, and it just really felt like we earned that one right after having
I'll say
survived that first leg, and we came in. There's a really nice hotel just in one of the first little bays when you come in around that lighthouse where the finish line is, and we went there to the dock there and went and had a really nice dinner together, and they have a rooftop sauna and hot tub little spa section, so we could sit there and just enjoy the sunset and some drinks, and it's just it was really
pretty
nice.
Good.
Debrief the race. So
cool.
Good times.
And are you going to make this like an annual thing? You're doing this again next year, right?
Yeah, we are. It's I think it's a super fun race, very interesting. It's yeah, so I'll try and fit it into the calendar every year if we can. And yeah, we are doing it again next year. I think there might even be there's one spot open actually for next year's Shetland Race. So if anybody wants to come and join us, you can sign up there. And yeah,
Cool.
And if anybody has a boat and want to do a really cool and fun race, I'd recommend everybody to sign up. It's really cool. It's a really fun, really. It's it's a smaller race. There's not a ton of boats in there, but it's very cute, very friendly.
I love
nice.
I love the attitude. I love the destination races as well, where you actually you're not like. You get to, like, an example in comparison, the Carib 600, you start and finish in Antigua, and meanwhile you sail past all these beautiful islands that you don't get to stop at. But you actually get to go and see something and then race back again. It's a really nice concept.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very cool. I also got to say that I'm so impressed with how ISBJÖRN handled herself on that crossing on the especially on that first leg going westwards, because she had just been out of refit and we had a couple of things that we were just shaking down, I guess, on during the season up to that point, and some leaks here and there, and some things that weren't fitted quite where we want them to be and stuff, but everything just went perfectly on the way across, and we ran the bilge pump for a grand total of 8 seconds.
Wow!
Throughout that, it's crazy upwind. Even though we took like green water over the bows and stuff, very, very impressed. So
that's very cool. I mean, that makes you more confident in the boat for just normal sailing for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really nice. So yeah, she's a good boat. She likes that kind of stuff. It was all the crew that failed. Which
yeah, exactly.
I think that is this one. We placed very well on the going back on the leg back to Bergen. We'd placed quite poorly going westwards. Like everybody was slow, but we were, proportionately we were a slower boat also for our rating. I think it's down to like it's just harder to sail upwind if you have a novice or like a crew that hasn't worked together that much, haven't done a lot of racing, don't have the experience of helming the boat in really big conditions like that. I think it's more down to the crew going upwind, and then more down to the boat when you go downwind. And I think ISBJÖRN was just the way ISBJÖRN was just set up for that downwind leg was just perfect, and we really didn't have to do very much. So
that's great. Just drive the boat.
Pretty much, yeah. But helming her upwind in those conditions during the first leg was hard, and we had tons of. We ended up in irons many times, and we tacked over. Not on purpose a few times, and had to do like some chicken jibes to get back on track, and lots of stuff like that going on. So it was it was a very I learned a lot from that race, and I'm very much looking forward to next year. It'll be fun.
Well, Skipper, I need to run. I'm on my way to look at. This is a sneak preview of maybe the next episode we do. I'm on my way to look at a Norline 37 and an OE 36, two classic 50-year-old Swedish-built boats. I can't help myself. This is not for 59 North, I should say. This is for Mia and I personally. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah, I'm very excited to hear about both of them, and we should totally do a podcast or a quarterdeck thing or something.
I mean, definitely,
really cool.
Just these two boats alone. I mean, the Norline 37 is a big version of Spica, which is a Norline 34. I mean, it almost looks the same. It's just a little bit longer. And then this OE36 is OE stands for Ola Enderlein, who was a pretty famous Swedish yacht designer, designed a lot of the early Hallberg Rassy boats, but prior to that, designed some really sleek sort of cruiser racers. And this particular one very much looks like a mini ISBJÖRN. It almost looks like a Swedish Swan 36. And I'm excited to see it because they have a kind of like a cult following here in Sweden. So, you know me, I gotta have something unique. So
yeah,
we're gonna have a look see.
That's right. Yeah, I wouldn't see you with a newish Bavaria or something like that anytime.
No,
soon.
we might go look at an Arcona 355 later this week. That's in Stockholm. That's also a Swedish built boat. And then there's another Norlin designed boat called an Alban Stratus that there's a handful of in Stockholm we may go look at as well. Those are a little bit newer, still 80s or 90s. So yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about in our next boat shopping episode. And it's, my head was spinning, like I said at the beginning. I can't sleep. It's all very exciting.
That is so cool. I'm envious. I told you yesterday that the worst part about buying a boat is that you're no longer buying a boat.
You're no longer shopping. I know.
Yeah, that's right. It's such a cool process. So
it is.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Share as much of that with me as you can, and I can experience it through you
vicariously. Cool.
That'd be great. Yeah.
All right, Skipper.
Cool.
Thanks for today.
Thank you very much. This is great. Good luck with your boat shopping mission.
All right. See you next time.
See ya. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to join the Quarterdeck, go to quarterdeck.59-north.com. The Quarterdeck podcast is produced by August Sandberg for 59 North. Music is by the Storm Weather Shanty Choir.